And joining us would be Ambassador Yashwardhan Sinha, former Indian High Commissioner to United Kingdom, to talk about Prime Minister's upcoming visit. Ambassador Sinha, welcome to DD India. Before I come to Prime Minister's visit, if you could share your insight into what defines India-UK relationship in the 21st century.
I think the relationship has been very well defined in the Roadmap 2030, which Prime Minister Modi and the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson finalized or announced in their virtual meeting on the 4th of May 2021. And they also announced an enhanced trade partnership that, of course, has led to the FTA being signed now.
Right. And sir, the negotiations on the FTA, we understand, have been ongoing for over 3 years. What makes it transformative for the two countries?
I think it is the reason why this FTA is important, because this is the first FTA that India will be signing with the G7 country. A large economy. I mean, we are the fifth, heading to become the fourth largest economy, and the UK is the sixth largest economy. So I think the FTA between our two large economies would be mutually beneficial to both the countries. And I think though the negotiations lasted 3 years, but actually talk of an FTA and the preparation started much before. I recall in January 2018 that then Commerce Minister Mr. Suresh Prabhu and his counterpart Liam Fox announced a joint trade review, which is very important to identify tariff lines and products where both sides could then negotiate on. So that formed the basis, and we've had talks even before that through the joint working group and the JETCO, which meets regularly between the two countries. So I think the negotiations, the serious negotiations, started after 4th of May 2021. Of course, in 2022, there was a deadline which the then British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said by Diwali 2022, but that didn't happen. I think it was very optimistic, but it certainly gave our negotiators the urgency to try and conclude an agreement as soon as possible. And I think the fact that it's taken so long obviously means that both the sides, both the negotiation teams have gone into considerable detail to see how they can come up with a mutually beneficial agreement. And I think the announcement on the 6th of May this year was very welcome. And now that the Honourable Prime Minister is in the UK's 4th visit, I think it's going to be very significant when the deal is signed.
Right. And your broad view on what this FTA free trade agreement would mean for India. The announcement that came on 6th of May, 99% of Indian exports are going to benefit from zero duty. Labor-intensive sectors in particular are set to gain.
Yes, absolutely. I think what Indian exporters have a great opportunity, and they must avail of this opportunity. And I think while UK is not among the largest trading partners of India, not even in the top 10, I think this FTA will boost bilateral trade. It's expected, if I remember correctly, that by 2040, the trade would be boosted by 24 odd billion pounds, which basically in dollars would, the total trade in 2040 is expected to be around $100 billion. Currently, it's around $60 billion. So I think it's significant. Even India has given assurances, from what I understand, because while we haven't seen the fine print of the text yet, but what is available in the public domain, India has agreed that in the next 10 years or so, tariff lines would, initially we would reduce or eliminate tariff on 90% of the tariff lines that UK export, and in a decade, it would be reduced to 85% of duty-free access or tariff-free access, which is very important for the UK. And of course, the good news for Scotch drinkers is that the duty for Scotch will be reduced from 150% to 75%, and then 40% over the next decade. But there are other sectors where the UK would also benefit. In India, Indian exporters, especially of commodities like apparel, textiles, gems and jewelry, leather and footwear, and also some of our manufacturing sectors would benefit by this FTA. So I think overall it's a win-win situation for both countries.
Right. Ambassador Sinha, can you give us a sense of the manner in which the United Kingdom looks at India as a trading partner, as a strategic partner, especially as it tries to carve out an identity post-Brexit?
Well, that's a very good question, because I was there when soon after Brexit, the vote, I mean, and then I remember in January 2017, there was a very important speech by the then Prime Minister Theresa May at Lancaster House in London, and I was present, where she talked about a globalized Britain, and she identified a few countries like India, the United States, China, Australia, Japan as countries where they're going to do a strategic partnership and where there would be an FTA, where they would negotiate an FTA. So I think India had already been identified as a major partner. And even before that, if you recall, when David Cameron was Prime Minister,
yes,
he came thrice to India, the head of big business delegations. So the UK had already identified, even before Brexit, India as a major market, as a major partner. And after Brexit, I think the urgency increased, because I think the UK, being a trading nation, didn't want to remain isolated, because when it was part of the EU, it availed of various concessions that were available to the Union per se. But as far as India is concerned, I think they have gone ahead, and on both sides, in many ways, have taken a leap of faith. And I personally feel that it's going to be a win-win for both the countries and their business communities.
And how do you look at the people-to-people connect between the two countries? A thriving Indian diaspora of some 1.8 million. We were earlier talking about how Rishi Sunak was the first British Prime Minister with Indian legacy, Indian heritage. In that sense, how does this population, the diaspora, form a living bridge between the two nations?
Well, absolutely. They play a very important role. In fact, you took the words off my mouth. Prime Minister Modi, when he went in 2050, referred to this living bridge. And I think this living bridge is very important, because the Indian origin community in the UK contributes, if I remember correctly, over 6% of the GDP of that country, and though comprise less of about 3% of the population. So I think they play a very important role. They are in all sectors and all walks of life, doing extremely well in business, in trade, in professional services, in politics. So I think they are a stakeholder as far as better India-UK relations are concerned. And I do hope that this FTA is just one step towards a closer strategic partnership, because you have to, the trade is one element, there are other elements too that comprise a strategic partnership. And I think the Prime Minister's visit provides a very good opportunity for us to highlight some of the other issues that are there in our relationship with the United Kingdom.
In the same context, the people-to-people connect, where 170,000 and above Indian students studying in various UK university. Many would be planning to study in future. They would be looking forward to what comes out of Prime Minister's visit and the manner in which the education linkages become stronger between the two countries.
Absolutely. I think the UK still has some first-class higher education institutions, and traditionally they've attracted a large number of Indian students. A few years ago, there was a blip when the post-study work visa was removed, and now I think this FTA claims, I mean, we haven't read the fine print again, so I cannot really comment authoritatively, but what is in the public domain, that the FTA will cover the services sector, which includes, of course, digital trade and IT and IT-enabled services, financial services, and professional services, and educational services. So I'd like to see how this would impact our students who hope to go and study in the US. And mind you, given the problems in other countries where traditionally Indian students go, I think it would be very important, and it'll be good for the UK. When I was there was a study that estimated that international students, a lot of international students contributed around 25 billion pounds to the British economy. So this is quite a huge number. And I think the UK, especially the universities, are aware of the importance of international students. And I do hope that the FTA would also in some way address this issue.
Right, and finally, Ambassador Sinha, we know after Operation Sindoor, India has proactively pushed the issue of cross-border terrorism on various international forums. Do you think this visit will offer another important opportunity to Prime Minister to talk about this issue on a stage where the world is looking?
Yes, I think the entire gamut of issues will be discussed. I'm sure certainly cross-border terrorism emanating from Pakistan is right up there. The UK takes a very nuanced position, and I think after what happened in Pahalgam, I think it's quite clear as to where the epicenter of terrorism lies. I mean, I recall I was in New York when 9/11 took place. It was also at that time there were links drawn to Pakistan with one of the hijackers. But also, I mean, at that time when the NATO and the US intervened, Pakistan was identified as an epicenter, and it continues to remain so even today. So I think the UK, as a permanent member of the Security Council, as a member of the G7, and of course the FATF, I think plays a very important role, and they must understand that any dilution of the stand against terrorism will impact globally, because as I said, now terrorism doesn't know any borders, and I think we have seen acts of terrorism all over the globe. So I think this is an important issue. Apart from that, of course, the issue, the hardy perennial, the Khalistani issue, which needs to be addressed. There has been, at least since the last bunch of attacks, there has been some cooling down, but the UK certainly needs to do more. And the third issue being the fugitives from justice, the economic fugitives from justice. That's something that the UK would need to address as best as they can and as soon as they can.
Right, on that note, Ambassador Yashwardhan Sinha, thank you very much for joining us on the News Hour, sharing your perspective.